Hi. Come.
Yeah, we can move these and then we can move the chairs. Let's do that too.
Does everybody have a handout? No? You do? So, um, thank you for coming.
Do we walk it or?
No, but we'll meditate first. So take a comfortable seat, whatever that is for you. The only thing is that your back should be very, very straight. So straight that when you put your fingers up along your spine, like behind your navel especially, you can't feel any protrusions. You know what I mean? So if you put one finger in there and you feel a protrusion, then you need to lengthen yourself up more so that that protrusion kind of disappears. And then take your hand, your finger, and let it follow down your spine to the bottom of your tailbone, to the bottom of your coccyx. It's quite far down. And you'll feel like a point, right? And keep one finger on that point with one of your hands. Keep your finger on that point. And then just bring your fingers up a little, just a little bit. I want to say about 1 centimeter up till you hit a flat part. There's like a little flat section just above the coccyx. And then the other hand is going to press into the pubic bone. Like right at almost at the edge of the pubic bone. So if you can imagine that your two fingers are actually pressing in towards one another, essentially. They're pressing in towards one another. And you're mostly wanting to keep the pressure of your finger on the back hand at that little flat bit just above the coccyx. Keep your finger there quite hard. And then close your eyes and allow yourself to settle your weight so that you're even longer and even taller. And keep the pressure quite strongly, especially on the back finger. And then allow your consciousness, your mind, to go to that feeling and the impression, like the indentation that you might be making back there into that little piece of vertebra, that piece of bone, from pressing so hard with your finger. And then allow your mind to go into the feeling, that feeling that's being created there. This is the location of Svadhisthana chakra. Svadhisthana chakra. The sacral chakra, they call it sometimes. Keep your finger there. Strong, press strong. Press hard. Keep your mind in the way it feels when you press hard. Now, as you slowly remove your finger, keep your mind where your finger was. You can still feel the echo of it, right? It's as though your finger were still there. That's where I'd like you to keep your mind, right where your finger was, as though you hadn't taken your finger away. So keep your mind on the feeling so that it's as though your finger was still there pressing hard. Don't allow your mind to lose that sensation. Keep your mind on the sensation. Keep your mind on the sensation. Bring the sensation back now. Bring the sensation back more. Now you can release your mind from holding onto that sensation. Release your mind. Okay, that's good. So, if you were here for parts 1 and 2, at part 1 we did Ajna Chakra at the third eye point, and part 1 we did Ajna Chakra, part 2 we did Muladhara. Is that true? Who is here? Huh? That's true, right? That's what we did. Yeah. So last time we did Muladhara Chakra. So today we're doing Swadhisthana Chakra, and maybe someday we'll keep going. So if you missed the first 2 parts and you want to do these meditations on the chakra points, then all of the previous classes are on a couple of different websites, I think, right? 3 Jewels? As well as Padmanjali Yoga, so you can listen to that if you like. Why are we doing this, and what does it have to do with spiritual partnerships? What it has to do is that we are basing this particular teaching on several different texts, but one of them is called Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Some of us have been studying it very intensely for a while, and Hatha Yoga Pradipika practice starts with asana, which everybody is very familiar with, and then it goes into pranayama practice, using the breath, manipulating the breath to effect certain changes in your system, specifically to manipulate and direct pranic energy into the central channel. This is the purpose of pranayama practice, and also the purpose of asana practice, and it's the purpose of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika practices. And then in the third chapter of Hatha Yoga Pradipika, that text treats what are called mudras and bandhas. Mudra and bandha, generally speaking, you can say that they both mean seal or lock. Gesture, actually, mudra means gesture, but in the sense of, in the sense of this, right? Or something like that. This is a gesture, but actually what it is a lock. It's a way to lock energy, to lock the pranas that are coming out of the fingertips, for example. So this is an external mudra. This is an external mudra. And, we're all familiar with them, right? These kinds of mudras. But there are also internal mudras. And internal mudras are done using the bandhas. And also there are many mudras that we do internally. And to be able to do the mudras correctly, and you have to do them correctly, you have to be able to pinpoint the chakras very specifically and accurately. And so that's what's treated in chapter 3 of Hatha Yoga Pradipika, how it is that we use the mudras and the bandhas. And, it's very common. It's a commonly understood thing how you might use Jalandhara Bandha in pranayama practice, Maybe if you've done some pranayama practice, you can do like an inhalation retention, and maybe you'll apply Jalandhara Bandha. And maybe you've done pranayama practices where you've then applied some of the other lower bandhas, Uddiyana or Muladhara Bandha. And the purpose of those bandhas in a pranayama practice is to lock the prana into the central channel, into Sushumna. When the prana is successfully locked into Sushumna, it forces all of the energy and what we call Kundalini energy, which is kind of stuck down the bottom of the central channel in most of us. It allows that energy to rise, and the more that energy is able to rise up Sushumna, up the central channel, the more it basically, it illuminates the brain, of which we're using 10% or something, And so when that prana is allowed to go up the central channel and illuminate the rest of this physical brain, then we can experience states of consciousness that we absolutely can't access in a normal in a normal situation where the prana is not able to get into the central channel. And there are many ways that we can do that, and one of the ways that we can do that is through the practice with a partner, which is also treated in Hatha Yoga Pradipika. So that's what it has to do with the partnership talks. That was a long story. And that's all I have to say about that for now.
Hi, thanks for coming. So, yeah. I thought that we should just do a really quick few-minute review of the last two courses for people who weren't here, and just so that we could be clear about the sort of an overview of what we're talking about when we talk about keeping the bliss and what it is to be in a partnership and to be working with a spiritual partner. And I think, I was just going over it in my mind, that the two most important components I feel are, one, understanding or having some idea about emptiness and karma and emptiness and how they work in unison, number one, and how that relates to working with a spiritual partner. Why it's so important is not only for that, but for the implications of for the whole rest of our lives. Actually, karma and emptiness are the tools that allow us to change the movie of our lives and to create a different reality, a new kind of reality. So basically, when we talk about emptiness, what we talk about is the idea that things don't have any substance to them or any particular kind of nature to them other than the one that we impute and label with our minds, you see? So when we look at objects in the world and we have this interaction, subject-object interaction, our mind is labeling everything in our world, and this thing is good, this thing is bad, this person is nice, this person is not nice, this is what is this? It's a big hunk of glass that's in the shape of a diamond, or something like that, and everything else around us is a label that's coming from our minds. The things that we label don't have any inherency of being that way in and of themselves. That's what they say. So what's the proof of that? Is that if it was true that they did have some inherency and some quality about them that was inherent in the object, it would mean that every single person that looked at that would see the same thing. They would have to, because that was all that object would be. It would be a particular thing that had a certain quality, and everybody would have to see that because that's all it could be for anybody who engaged with it. And we know that that's not true, because different people look at the same object and they see different things. So that's emptiness in a very brief kind of a way. That is, in a nutshell, the idea of emptiness, or the fact that things are just sort of neutral. They're blank. These objects, the people in our lives, everything about that is blank. It has no nature of its own until we start ascribing labels and ideas and imputing our thoughts onto these blank objects in our life. And so what that means for, and specifically in relation to working with a partner, is, well, they're the same. They're the same as everything else. They're blank too. And if we thought that they had some inherent qualities of annoyance or beauty or anything in between those, we're not totally understanding. We're not interacting with that object properly, and we're misperceiving the object because somehow we feel or see that it has these inherent qualities in and of itself, or that the person does. And then we begin to react to that in a certain way, believing that it's true, and then all kinds of things spin off and start happening from that, and we get the whole gamut of human problems and behavior and interactions with each other. My partner or my boss or whoever, so and so is like this. They're a particular kind of a way. They have these traits, they have these patterns, they have these behavioral things, and we judge that and we think that it's true, but it's not ultimately true. So that's the idea of emptiness. We're just really touching on it here just to try to get a taste of it. It's a very important idea. And why we see these people and things in our life and how we interact with them is the other half of that coin, which is karma, or the samskaras that we have in our mind. So that basically means how you have interacted and treated others in the past is going to directly influence how you view and perceive these blank objects, the world around you. Okay? So if you have a good movie running, and they say in scripture, if you've been a kind person and you haven't gotten angry at people and you've been patient and you've been loving and tolerant, you're going to get back those things that you sowed into the world. Okay? You reap what you sow. So karma and emptiness work in a single song, really, and you can't talk about one without talking about the other. So that's the first thing. The second part I think that's important is that in some of the earlier talks we discussed an idea called Nagyal, which is a Tibetan word and sort of means some kind of pride or image about yourself, not a worldly pride, but a sort of a more of almost like a divine pride. So if you look at the cover here, that gives you a kind of a clue with this beautiful sort of celestial couple. I think they're floating in space, something like that. And there's this idea of, you know, we are working together in a higher way, and we have the ability to become higher beings because of what? Because of emptiness. You see, they work so perfectly together because of the fact that things are empty, because I'm empty, because my partner is empty. If I plant the right seeds in my mind, it will come to pass that I actually can see myself in a different kind of a way, and I can start to see the people in my world in a different kind of a way. You see, and so that's an idea of this that it plays very heavily into this idea of working with a partner is this divine image of yourself and of your partner. It's very useful. We got into it heavily in the first couple of talks. We won't do that again tonight. But suffice it to say that it definitely ups the ante on your practice with your partner. Okay, when you start trying even to view them in that kind of a way, in that light, you know, this person is a special person. They're not normal like that, and then everything that happens then can become more special between you because you made it special. You decided, I'm going to interact with this person in a more special kind of a way. I'm going to try to see them in a certain light, in a high light, and because of that, my interactions and the things that we can do together are going to have an elevated divine feeling about them, you see? So like that, it's a very beautiful way to live and to try to practice like that, actually. If you do that on a sustained basis, it really can have that ability to lift you to a different place with your partner. So that's sort of a quick overview. We usually try to do a disclaimer when we do these kinds of talks. You know, we definitely don't feel like we have perfected partner practice or that we're, you know, have returned from the void to tell you about it. It's not like that. We're totally a work in progress ourselves, and we're just learning like everybody else. So what we can share with you is the last 24 years of our relationship, 3 of which, or just under 3, were spent in an isolated, intense retreat in very close quarters with each other in silence. So that definitely added a lot of learning curves for us into the whole idea of what is a partner practice and you know, where are we going with this. So we're here to sort of wrap up the 3rd part of the series tonight, and it's really interesting because this is sort of like the grand finale here. What we're doing right now in the next hour and a half or so is the grand finale of these talks. It's mostly these verses and beautiful stanzas are sort of referring to reaching the ultimate goal, right? And it's interesting. It certainly takes a kind of a karma to hear that discussion, and to be part of that is actually, I think, very rare, and to understand it and then to be able to practice it is even more rare. And it's a very precious teaching. It's a very high teaching. It's usually given, we're talking about it in a very general way, but when it's given as a specific teaching by a lama or a guru, it's usually after many years of intensive study and it's given to small groups of disciples, and it's a very powerful mechanism that can be used to get people to an elevated state of consciousness. So it goes back thousands of years. It's not just some new thing. It goes through the Hatha Yoga lineage that Yvonne was talking about, all through the Tibetan lineages and Buddhism and many other practices around the world. It's not a new idea, working with a spiritual partner to try to elevate yourselves to a different level. So, with that all said, I think we'll just get right into the stanzas and rip through the ultimate goal, so that you can just get an idea of it. So here's the first one. Sorry. So serve each other, your community, your world, and then every world there is. And then here's a little verse from a prayer known as, well, they call it here the Glad Tidings or the Joyful Fortune of the Angel of Diamond, who's known as Vajrayogini. She's a female Buddha. May we have the joyful fortune of reaching the Angel of Heaven, the one who sends herself to every different world in every different form to meet the needs of every different person, to grant every different wish in every different and unexpected way. Well, the first thing I would say about that verse is there's a lot of difference in it. I think that therein lies our clue. Different because what they're talking about here is somebody who has exploded into this divine form, and basically a body of light and a mind made of pure love. And because of that, they're able to emanate and to clone themselves in countless different ways, and send themselves in infinite different variety of forms to people who are suffering in all of their permutations, and be with them and guide them and help them somehow. Is it possible? Is it true that could happen? I mean, I can't sit up here and say definitively yes, but I also can't say no. You see, I can't prove it to you tonight, but I think that you have to allow yourself that possibility, or else what is the point? What is the point of having the discussion, right? What is the point of exploring this idea if at least, it's like, well, maybe they can go do that. Maybe people can reach that place, right? Is that enough? I think so, Allowing for the possibility creates the space in your mind for it to be true and for it to actually unfold for you. So if you're not open to something, as you know, in life, then you're not open to it, and it won't ever happen for you. Because why? Because you shut it down in your heart and your mind. So I think the first thing is being open to the idea of something like that. Partner practice, working with a partner it's very, very powerful, and it works on many different levels. Yvonne gave you a taste of that at the very beginning there with the idea of working with the inner body and the pranic energies and so forth. And definitely that is how it works when you work with a partner. And it's not something that, people have this idea, it's all like tantric sex or something like that. There's this whole idea about tantra, and that's what people in the world think of today when you talk about the word tantra, and when you work with a partner especially. And that is a part of it, but it's like 1%. You see, this whole thing with a partner practice and a spiritual partnership is 99% of the time you're working with your partner in all the ways that you work with someone in a regular relationship, except that you're trying to see them as a special person, a divine kind of a person. They're hopefully trying to see you in the same light, which makes the whole thing work a little bit easier. and everything that happens in between there as you go through your day and your lives really together, you see. So it's not so much about, everyone has this idea of getting, tangled up in bed and so forth, and it's really not like that. Because frankly, you can't do that 24 hours a day anyway, and you need to then be able to work with the other 23 and a half hours, you see, like that. And that's partner practice. That's real partner practice. Not getting angry at my partner, not freaking out on them, not trying to manipulate them and maneuver them and possibly even like bully them around or get tough with them and stuff like that. I mean, it's not like that. Shouldn't be like that. That really is where all the work is, you see. And so you work through that, and you do your practices, and you do, as Yvonne was talking about, you do your pranayama, and you do your mudra, and your asana, and your bandhas, and your meditations, and you do all of these things across a long period of time. Abhyasa dirgha kala, practice on a sustained basis for a long period of time, and eventually you will pop out like this. You will pop out like this because of the fact that you understand karma and emptiness so well, and the fact that both of you are blank and you have no nature. You can transform your mind and your prana and your body, and you can turn out like a divine being. And you can then split yourself off into countless forms, countless enlightened physical forms, and you can go attend to people anywhere, anytime, 100 years from now, 1,000,000 years from now, everywhere. You're everywhere and nowhere all at once, you see. So that's what scripture says. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just sort of reporting in on the ultimate goal, what it could look like for somebody who's been working really hard at their partner practice, you see. That's where you can end up going with it. So that's the first verse, and now Yvonne is going to lead us into the second principle.
The second principle says, are you sure they weren't sent to you? And the verse is from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, light on the union of the sun and moon. Light, Pradipika, union, yoga, sun and moon, ha and ta. Written in India about 300 years ago. These and other holy beings, born into power by the union of the sun and moon, roam the universe, mingling among crowds of humankind, for they have murdered death itself. I really like this verse a lot. It's a really, it's one of my favorite verses in the whole book, the whole Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Roger was just talking about how we're all blank. Not only are we all blank, but all of our interactions are blank. Every object in the universe is completely blank. And the thing is, the really interesting and powerful thing about it that makes my heart stop when I think about it is that as soon as you label it anything, you automatically negate anything else it could have been, just by virtue of the fact that you call it something. Whatever you call it, anything else it could have been, poof, Because I tell you what, to then go back and change your mind about what it is much, much harder. So then if you bear that in mind, right, then you can get really, really aware and really cognizant about what you're calling things, people, interactions, your life, your partner, everything that's going on. And as much as we can't prove to you, that actually you are all divinely descended beings, we can't prove it to you, but I'd like to hear you disprove it. Anybody want to try to disprove that could be the case? That's what Roger was saying. So, so we could talk about it later if anybody has a strong disagreement about that, but I'm going to assume for now that we're basically can agree on that. And so what are you going to call something? How are you going, what kind of a box are you going to put it in by virtue of the fact that you just label it? So this verse is talking about the lineage gurus of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. It's talking about the parampara. It's called the parampara. We talked about it in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika course last time, and tomorrow we'll talk about it more. But that lineage of teachers, descending basically from, it actually goes back a very long way, and in the between Tibetan Buddhism and the lineage of the Indian Yoga Mahasiddhas and the gurus of the Indian Yoga lineage, at least back to Gautama Buddha, and then who knows, Shiva, goes to Shiva in the Indian Yoga lineage. So these lineages are coming down through eons, and this verse is sort of paying homage to those gurus who have been born into power. They've been born into a state of enlightenment through the union of the sun and the moon, through hatha practice. In this case, we're talking about hatha practice. And they roam the universe, mingling among crowds of humankind, disguised as our teachers, for example. For they have murdered death itself. What does that mean, murdered death itself? See, I really like this verse because our big, what's it called? Our slogan or something is killing time. And it's kind of a private joke, but we were in this long retreat, right? And it was really long. And sometimes it's a little boring, and what did we do, right? What do we do to kill time? And killing time, the Sanskrit word for killing time is kala danda, and it's in this particular verse in the Sanskrit. And what they're talking about when they talk about murdering death itself is they're talking about uniting the energy in the right-hand channel, it's called Pingala, and the left-hand channel, it's called Ida, and the right-hand channel is also called Ha, or the sun channel, and the left-hand channel is also called Ta, or the moon channel. And when those two channels unite into Sushumna, the central channel, because all of the prana from them has been sucked into the central channel, then in fact you have murdered death. You have killed time. Because what's time? Time is dependent upon what? The sun and the moon, right? And so it's sort of like we kind of have it ass backwards, in the sense that we have the imprint. We have the imprint. We've created the imprint to experience a day and a night, and a male and a female, and a sun and a moon. We have created the karmas to experience our lives that way. Right? I don't know about you. I see that it's night right now, I see this sort of alien being, a male, Mars energy, relative to the female, Venus, right? And it's the subject of like volumes and millions and billions of dollars of like help me books, right? Wow, how do we, how do we unite? How do we unite? So all of those dualities arise as a result of the fact that we ended up with prana in these two side channels, ha and ta. And so as a result of that, and as a result of extremely old sanskaras, seeds, imprints, impressions that we created, that's just how we see it. And so I want to say, let's back off from calling it that. Like, let's back off right now. Okay? If we back off from calling it that, night, day, we can never unite. Like, we're too different, You're a male, I'm a female, and I can never get all that. Back off from that kind of labeling, because you immediately, you just like shut down the possibility. You shut down the possibility. So killing time is, in fact, to transcend duality, is the other like scholastic phrase that they use. Transcend duality. What does that really mean? What does it mean to transcend duality? So, it means at a pranic level, at an energetic level, it means to draw all of the prana into Sushumna Nadi, into the central channel. And when you do that, there are no more side channels. And it is the side channels that give rise to those dualities. So then we've killed time. So, we merrily sat in 3-year retreat tried to do that, So that's the reason I like that verse so much. I like it so much. And it's very interesting to me that we have no Wi-Fi in here tonight. It's very interesting to me because, maybe this will turn into some sort of a full-on, very, very small group of students show up for the tantric teaching, And maybe you're ready for it, and that's why you're here, and that's why there's no Wi-Fi and nobody gets to Ustream, So, because that's the way it goes, and there are no accidents like that one. There are no accidents like that particular type of accident. So, are you sure that, your partner wasn't sent here to you, arrived here, so that you could say, all right, I take back this label, I take back this conception I have of you, I take back this perception that I have of you. Let me just play with it. What else could I call you? How else could I view you? Could I view you as somebody that I can do these practices of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika with, under the guidance of a teacher, carefully and slowly and progressively and very sweetly and organically. And maybe in doing that, I can use the mudra that's created in a partnership. Maybe I can use that mudra to draw the prana into Sushumna channel. And is that a powerful mudra? Actually, it is. It's an insanely powerful mudra. And if you can use that, and if you can draw that prana up to the Sahasrara chakra, the highest chakra, then you're in chapter 4. And when you're in chapter 4 of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, then you know that they were sent to you, That's when you know that not only were they sent, but it was all sent. In fact, you created it all. You created it all so that you could do this systematic method, the systematic process of utilizing everything in your world specifically for the purpose of allowing yourself to become an enlightened being. Or maybe we can say allowing yourself to realize that you're an enlightened being. And then you can take your rightful place, in your world. So that thought process creates a brand new imprint. A brand new imprint. Now you've created, I suggested some kind of a weird, outlandish possibility to you, but that creates this brand new samskara, this brand new seed, you know? And like, why not, right? Really? Why not? Well, that's a nice segue.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yes. So today somebody gave me a movie and said, "Oh, I think you might like this. You might enjoy it." The movie's called Edge of Tomorrow. I don't know if anyone's seen it, and the theme or the whole point of The Edge of Tomorrow is live, die, and repeat. Okay, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay,
Is it violent?
live, die, repeat, live, die, repeat, live, die, repeat, and I just thought, wow, that's not the point. That's not the point of partner practice, and it's not the point of any spiritual practice, is to keep on and on going through the cycle of suffering and pain. And that's what I saw in this, just in the cover of the movie there, it isn't the point. We want to transcend that. We want to jump out of that rut that we have been in for so long, countless past lives, or even if you don't even believe in past lives, this life, is there anyone in this life that hasn't had some kind of suffering? You see, it's impossible. To be human is to suffer. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're the Queen of England or anyone else. You will be in pain. This realm of mind that we're in right now, if you appear as normal humans to me, is a realm of pain and suffering, you see. And you won't get to a place where you can be flying around in some like light diamond body or something until you start to understand that very deeply. Like, something is broken here, something's not working right. There's so many stories of pain and suffering in the world, isn't there? And if it's fixed and if it's not empty, then we can never transcend it and we can never transform it. If things are not empty, we're so hosed. We might as well just go to the pub right now. I mean, I think there's one on the corner there, because there isn't any point. You see, you might as well drown your sorrows, because if things are fixed, but they're not, and that is the saving grace, and that is the power behind these teachings. Not just working with a spiritual partner, but the whole path, the whole yogic path, the whole Buddhist path, the whole Catholic path, the whole any path. All of those are enabling people to rise up and get to a place where you can not only become like an enlightened being or have enlightened qualities or something like that, or become like Jesus or something like that, but you can actually become that person. You see, that's the full fruit of spiritual practice. And to think any less than that, I think, is to what's that word? Is to shortchange yourself. You see, why are you going to do that? Do you? Are you not empty as well? Is that possibility somehow exclusive to everyone else? No, it's a universal principle that extends, and that's how the world runs. It doesn't even have a name. It's just how reality works, as one of my teachers says. So, and that is the beauty of this kind of practice. I mean, how many people want to sit here and talk about working with a partner? It's a very skillful means, because you can come at spiritual practice in so many different ways. From the yogic lineage, you can talk about um, all these different yogas, like karma yoga, the yoga of service, the yoga of attending to people in the community and to your guru and all that kind of thing. You can talk about bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion. You can talk about jnana yoga, the yoga of analysis and understanding. You can talk about nada yoga, the yoga of sound. You can talk about laya yoga. There are hundreds of different kinds of yogas, and all of them take you to that place, and included in that is working with a partner. And it's skillful because people in this realm, they call this the desire realm, for those of you that don't know. The desire realm is driven by just that. It's driven by desire. So mostly that involves food and sex and very basic primal urges and things like that people are attracted to. Very sort of basic mechanisms and survival like things, food, shelter, sex, stuff like that. Those are all desire realm activities. And to find a spiritual path that embraces everything and doesn't say, well, okay, some things are pure and some things are impure over here. Like you couldn't practice with a partner, that's impure. That again is like the short-changing idea, and it doesn't allow for karma and emptiness to come into play, because you're, as Yvonne said earlier, you're negating a whole bunch of stuff when you do that. Oh, some things are impure. Well, they may appear to be impure, but not in and of themselves, not in an ultimate sense. And so if you can find something that embraces everything, and that's what these practices do, then if it's used correctly and with wisdom and with the proper training, then it's an extraordinarily powerful way to get yourself out of the suffering very quickly. That's the point I'm trying to make here. If you get the right teachings on it, if you have the right understanding about it, and if you follow the advices of your teacher or teachers, you can use everything in your life and everything in your world to get out of this cycle of pain, you see? Because of the fact that nothing is ultimately pure or impure in and of itself, you can take everything and you can bring it into your sphere and into your practice, and you can make it very powerful. So that is the incredible potential of all of this stuff. I'm going to read another verse now. Well, it's actually not a verse. It's sort of more like an accounting or a story. This is about rewriting your past. So there was a fellow called Subhuti who, every time the Buddha was giving a teaching or something like that, and then Subhuti would be like, well, what about and he'd ask these really weird questions, and he'd just like do these pop-up things, right? And the Buddha would be like, oh yes, that's right. Good question, Subhuti.
No, the Buddha was sleeping.
Well, he's probably thinking it. He's like, thank you, So, rewriting the past and being able to receive teachings like that from anyone and everyone, including your partner, is a serious practice in and of itself. Being available to the idea that, here they're talking about the idea, well, look, really the Tibetans began to view this idea that Subhuti was in fact an enlightened being himself, and there was this whole ploy going on, this whole ruse that they had, and they would play with each other, and he would manifest these weird questions and so forth, and like that. So there was this interplay between the Buddha and Subhuti, and really you can then extrapolate that out to everything and everyone in your life. You don't have to limit it to the quintessential time that the Buddha was in the world teaching. You see, it can ripple out, and you can take this idea and you can start to rewrite everything that has ever happened with all of your interactions with everyone in your life, you see. So now, for example, personally, I was married when I was 21 when I first came to Canada, and to a lady from Edmonton, and we had a very short and intense relationship, and it ended, and then I got to stay in Canada, and in the moment that things were happening with us and the whole relationship sort of peaked and then ended, I wasn't able to clearly see that she was giving me some very high teachings, you see. I wasn't clear enough, and I was too in the moment, and it was too powerful, and it was too strong to be able to understand that. I didn't have that clarity. Fast forward 20-something years since we've been separated. Now I look back at it, and I see what she was doing, and I see where she was guiding me, and where she was directing me by virtue of the relationship and so forth. But it's taken a while. If your practice includes a lot of meditations about this idea, about the idea of emptiness and about the idea of karma, if your meditations include a lot of love and a lot of ideas about being kind to other people and helping them and not hurting them, then you will be able to more readily, in the moment when things are happening with your partner or with other people and interactions in your life, you'll be able to more readily understand that that person is giving you a teaching, and that person actually, maybe even further than that, is somebody who could be like Subhuti. Maybe they're even an enlightened being. From the verse before, mingling among humankind, for they have murdered death themselves. The possibility is there, you see, and if you think about it enough, and if you meditate about it enough, and if you practice about these ideas enough every day, you will find that you're more available, you're more open to the idea, and it won't be so hard in the moment to accept that, you see, and then you can begin to work with it a little bit, even maybe as they're telling you, I think that you're a jackass or something like that, in the moment, maybe you'll even be able to get to that place where you're like, thank you. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out to me, rather than responding in kind, the way that we usually want to, right? Well, let me get out my list about all the things I've been stewing about you, and let's get into it. That is the usual reaction between people. Did it ever really work? Did it ever help anything? Did it help at all? Maybe they are Subhuti. Maybe they are trying to give you the highest teaching and push you in a certain direction, you see? So you have to be open to that. It's very interesting. The other day I was having a chat with a close family member, and actually I was talking about someone else in the extended family, and in my mind and in my heart I wanted to criticize this person, but I didn't want to do it openly. So I started talking about them, and I started waxing poetic about all their good qualities. And then I slipped in my but they blah 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 blah. And this other family member looked at me and he said, "That's a compledus." And I said, "What? What are you talking about?" He said, "You have just compledused one of my family members." And I'm like, "Well, what is a compledus?" He says, "It's a compliment and a diss." And it's like this new term that they've wrapped it up in one, and they've called it a compledus, It's like a new language, right? And I'm like, and he's like, "You just compledused, my so-and-so, extended family member. Don't do that to my family." He's like, "What business do you have to do that?" And I'm like, whoa, you know what? I knew I was doing it too. I knew I was doing it, and he called me on it with this completist thing, and I said, You know what? You're right. You know, he just nailed it, and it really came home to me in that moment. You know, he directly gave me a powerful teaching in that moment. You know, watch your mouth and watch your mind and watch your heart, and you know, what were you really doing? You know, waxing poetic about them first to make everyone feel good, and then tearing them down in the next breath. You know. So that was a very powerful lesson for me, and I've been thinking about that ever since, and trying to watch my mind about that. And I actually feel like this particular family member has a certain quality because of emptiness and karma, that he could be an enlightened being who's trying to teach me something here. Definitely trying to teach me something in a very strong way. You see. So be open to that. Be available for that. It can happen anywhere, anytime. It doesn't have to be in an interaction with your partner. Hopefully that's where it starts, you know, because you're with your partner a lot of the time, presumably. And then you get to the place where you can make it begin to work with them. Then it can start to ripple out into the rest of your world. Okay, it can start to ripple out, and then suddenly maybe everybody is an incredible teacher. Maybe suddenly everybody has the potential to be a divine being who's starting to pour teachings into me and guiding me and pushing me slowly and subtly, or maybe not so subtly, sometimes in the right direction. You see, where I need to be going. What kind of world would that be to live in? What kind of profound place is that to be in your mind, where everything and everyone is just an incredible teaching that's pouring into you from these deities, from these people, you see? So keep that in mind. It's a heck of a practice, and it's ongoing. That's all I can really say about it. It's ongoing, and it's fun too. It's really fun. Then you can start to get secret messages, and especially for you, right? Especially for me. That completus was for me, you know, like that.
I used to play this game with myself in retreat. And the game, it was this. I would be, you know, we didn't speak. And so the partner, you know, the Buddha partner or the annoying partner or any other kind of partner is not actually saying anything, you know. So, but it's amazing how loud you can scream without opening your mouth, first of all. Or be screamed at, you know, without them opening their mouth. But, so I used to play this game where, even in meditation, I do it even now. And so the meditation goes kind of like this. I'm not trying to focus on a single thing. I'm not even trying, okay? That's not the point of this particular kind of meditation. The point is that whatever's going on in my mind, I'm allowing it, like I'm welcoming all kinds of stuff to arrive into my mind stream. And so as it's going by, I'm thinking, oh, you know what? What is the message of that thought? Like, what is the message of that distraction, you know? And if I'm one with my God, which is like my favorite thing to imagine, if I'm one with my God, and if I'm, you know, if I have all my prana in my central channel and my partner and I are united so that we've completely transcended duality and we're Buddhas, you know, and we look like those Tibetan Buddhas that are constantly in a state of union, you know, all the time. And if that's how it is, then everything that occurs in my mind stream must somehow have a quality of being divine, or at the very least useful, at the very least functional for me. So what could it be? And then, then I get to stop beating myself up for not being able to concentrate while I'm meditating. Then I can use everything that's coming in my mind as a teaching to me, especially, from wherever it came from, whether it has to do with, how I need to weed the garden or wax my armpits or whatever it might be, like there's some kind of a reason why, right? And it's remarkable how that type of relabeling really does switch up the imprint and switch up the way that you view something like distraction in meditation, a high state of agitation in meditation. And then if you can extrapolate that into off the cushion and into every way that you view your partner or every kind of everything that's going on in your world, then you can really start to use this concept that Roger was talking about, where you use everything. You use everything. Everything is some particular functional meaning in order to transcend you and take you into a state where, you are one with your God. You are. So, and, we have that ability, we have that ability. We already know, right? Oh, yeah, I forgot my mic. We already know that we can do that because the relationships that, as Roger was just recounting, the relationships that we had a quarter of a century ago, suddenly they don't look the way they did, and suddenly they're like, wow, if I hadn't done that, then I wouldn't have done that, and then it wouldn't have been like this, and then that wouldn't have happened, and then, and you can do that. You can go back into your past and do that. You can go back and remap the bridges and the forks and the way that it went for you, so that you can see an entirely different map, an entirely different path evolving just out of that process of going back and doing it that way, seeing it that way. Because nothing is the way that we label it, and that's why it works. Nothing is the way we label it. How do we know that? For this very reason. Stuff is constantly changing. The way you think about people and things and events and interactions is constantly changing. One day, scripture is like, it's built on stuff like this. One day your enemy is your best friend, and tomorrow it's like your best friend is your enemy, and then the day after that, you get married. You're marrying them, And it's like that not only with relationships, but it's like that with things. It's like that with movies and books. And does it really have to be just a horrible, violent movie? Like, is it just a horrible, violent movie? Apparently, But live, die, repeat. I don't know. Like, that's kind of intriguing, right? I wonder what happens. After they're pointing out, like, your life is just live, die, repeat. Had you noticed? Live, die, and do it again, Had you noticed? Yeah. So what could they possibly be wanting with me to watch it? But, now I'm so intrigued, right? So now I've already created this new, this thing. So I am going to watch this damn thing.
It's Tom Cruise.
I'm going to watch it.
Gotta be good.
And because I'm going in like this. I'm going in like this. This is my new... And because of that, there's no doubt that it's gonna be just like rich with some kind of crazy innuendo and like, you right? It's gonna have like double entendre. It's like, and at the end of it, we're gonna be like, wow, you guys have to watch this movie. Let's have a look. I already know. Just remember it anyway. What's it called?
It's called
Edge of Tomorrow. Un jour sans lendemain. Edge of Tomorrow. So, whatever, the point is simply that it can be like that with everything for us. So then the fourth principle of this part 3 of episode 1 says, have your cake and eat it too. And it comes from entering a scripture, entering the waves of an ocean of wisdom. Entering the waves of an ocean of wisdom, written in Tibet about 300 years ago. They say, that you and I already possess a field which is more fertile than any other field in all the world. If we plant the right seeds in it, a certain thing will grow. And if that one thing grows, then all the other good things that we could ever wish for grow too, all on their own. This field is the field of our own mind. It is extraordinary beyond all other things. Every goodness of this life and everything beyond this life grows from it. This is not a field like other fields, not a field that you can only farm in the summer and must leave fallow in the winter. It is a field for all 4 seasons of the year, a field of good deeds towards others, where you can plant the seeds for everything you ever wished for, using the plow of understanding. Understanding what? Understanding that when you plant a tomato seed, you cannot get a kabocha. You cannot get
What a kabocha is.
a kabocha. It's a Japanese pumpkin. And you can't get one from a tomato seed. We tried. You can't get one. So maybe you haven't had a consciousness of this, but if you start having a consciousness of it, and you definitely should not take our word for it, you should start to have a conscious awareness of this going on. And there are other methods, you can track it in writing and stuff like that, and track it with special apps and stuff. Who has the app for the book anyway? Is it Shuddy? Somebody has an app for the book.
Well, Mishi made a Google Doc.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's this thing, where you maintain a level of awareness about what's going on, what's happening to you. The best thing is to think about things that are happening to you, stuff that's happened to you or happening to you. And you develop a very, very intensive awareness of when there might ever have been a time that you caused that very thing to happen to someone else. That's all. That's all. And I don't know, like it's pretty easy to catch yourself thinking, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me again is usually the thing, right? Why is this happening to me again? Jobs, relationships, money, everything that goes on. It's happening to me. It's always has this sense of happening to me, I was just sitting there rolling merrily along, and this shit started happening to me. Why? So the first thing you do is you develop an awareness of when you might ever have caused anything even resembling that flavor to happen to someone else. Okay? And sometimes it's hard because sometimes it could have been a former life, but very usually it's not. Most of the time it's not a former life, And you can even learn to look into those former lives, so don't worry about it if you can't remember. But think about it and develop a very high awareness of that. See if you can't work out that, when you are if you have a resistance to giving or making a donation or something like that because you're broke, because you can't, you don't have the money and you don't want to do it because you're afraid that then you'll have nothing. And maybe it's very noble, like, then I'll have to go and borrow some from someone or impose upon someone because I won't have. And see if you haven't noticed a pattern where the more you think that way, the more you make that imprint, the less you have. And it takes a very, very strong awareness to turn your mind and to say, okay, in the face of this serious destitution that I'm experiencing, in the face of this serious abuse that I'm taking from my partner, in the face of this like outrageous unjust situation I've got going on at my place of employment, right? In the very thick of it, I'm going to say, no, I'm going to do an experiment right now, and I'm going to do this new imprint, and especially when it's really thick and heavy, I'm going to say, I have no money. I actually have $5, but that's all. And I'm going to take this $5 very consciously, and there isn't even anyone to give it to. So you know what? I'm going to set fire to it. There's always someone to give it to, but let's say you're in retreat, and there isn't someone. Like the Spud people, it's been like they're not coming for a week, and like I'm having the thought now, I'm going to kill this destitution, So I take this $5 bill and I set a match to it, and I think never, 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 never am I going to plant the seeds for poverty by having resistance to an act of generosity towards somebody. The smallest act of generosity. Maybe it's my time, I can't. I'm too exhausted. I can't listen to you anymore. I can't look after you anymore. That's also generosity. So you do that, but you have to do it in the thick of it. You have to do it in the thick of it. And when you do it in a very conscious way, I light this match and I watch this $5 bill, and it's the only one I have. And let this tendency in my heart go. Let it die. Here's my new imprint. And then you have to be super aware and watch all the time what's going on in your life and how people suddenly have all kinds of time for you, And then like some weird inheritance shows up, which is completely ridiculous. Like, how can it be? How could it possibly be that this weird inheritance shows up out of nowhere? And stuff like that. And then suddenly, the way it's always been with the way that, your partner reacts to you, suddenly like it's not. Wow, what happened, So what does it take? It takes a high degree of awareness, and it takes the recognition of an opportunity, and it takes, because of the fact that it requires you to find a very fertile field in your mind. You have to really watch carefully for the very fertile field, and this is why you can wait for the rage to become intense, and you can wait for the jealousy to completely take over your mind, and you can wait for the stinginess to be really intense, or whatever it is that you're working with, right? Whatever's going on in your life, you don't like it, you want to change it, wait till it's really bad, then this is when you have to do it. So then, any kind of emotion or thought you're having in your mind, or some weird afflicted tendency you have, becomes this unbelievably ripe, fertile opportunity, right? Then you'll be like, and it won't happen anymore. And you'll be like, give me some more of that, give me some more of that jealousy, give me some more of that anger, I want to try this again. Then you might be shit out of luck. You see? So you never know. That's how fertile it is, That's how fertile your mind is, if you can look at it that way. If you can look at it that way and use it that way. And just plant a different seed, Plant a different seed.
Okay, so is this the last one? Mm-hmm. Is it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Last principle or verse, we are one body. Again from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, from the light on the union of the sun and moon, so written around 300 years ago. This is another extraordinary verse. I will explain the secret of time. Time is held by the sun and the moon, making it into night and day, but time is devoured by the central one. Mm. So there are so many ways that we can look at this verse, and Yvonne was talking about our side channels, Ida and Pingala. So we're talking about subtle body energies here. We're talking about what they call nadis, or pathways that would, maybe approximate the nervous system of the body. And then they say that there are three main ones running up. There's the two side channels, and then there's what they call the central channel, or the Sushumna Nadi. And the side channels, they say, are where all of our prana is 90-something 9% of the time. Very rarely does prana get into the central channel, unless for a normal human being. There are a couple of times for a normal human being who's not involved in an intense yogic practice or spiritual path where you get a very tiny amount of wind or prana into the central channel. One of those moments is at orgasm for a human being, where you just get this tiniest little flash. You see, that's why it feels so darn good. And then the other time is at the moment of death. Okay, some people throw sneezing in there, but I'm not. I'm not entirely sure that it's in the same league, frankly. Although there was that whole thing with snuff, and people really got off on that. But anyway, so you're getting this little bit of wind in there, this little bit of prana, and until you fully stabilize that, until you get to that point, you are prey. You're succumbing to these dualities, you see, of like Yvonne was talking about, night and day, positive and negative, excuse me, good and bad, black and white, right and wrong, you see, male, female, sun, moon, darkness and light. You see, these constant dualities that are running our lives because our prana is in these two side channels, because it's not in the central channel. We are forced to experience these, what they call subject-object dualities, these dichotomies. We saw a billboard down the road for some new condo development, and I wanted to make a pitch about that development. No, I was just kidding. It had this thing on the side, they do all this like advertising and marketing and stuff, and it had this thing about create your individuality, was what it was, and it had the big word individuality, okay, and then I was just looking at it, and I'm like, oh my God, there is tonight's teaching. There it is on the billboard on Main and Broadway or something. It's right there on the corner, and it's like, in like divide, in dividing, we get duality. You see, we get duality. We get all these subject-object dualities, this night and day, light and dark thing that we're talking about. In dividing subject and object, because of the wind that's in my side channels and not in my central channel, we have this dichotomy. And what is this dichotomy that we're really talking? What is subject-object duality? It sounds very racy, It means that we somehow, when we engage me, the subject state of mind, I'm the subject state of mind perceiving the world and the objects in it, I think that this object is separate from me. You see, I'm not understanding that this object is coming from me. Remember we talked at the beginning about how I'm labeling this object. this is that, this is good, this is bad, this is dark, this is light, this is, right, this is wrong. All of that is coming from me, but I think that it's not. You see, that's the duality right there. I think that things exist independent of my projections and labels of them. That's what we talked about at the beginning. That's duality. That's subject-object duality. I'm not understanding that as the karmic seeds open in my mind and the movie of my world is playing, those seeds, as they open, the same seed that allows me to understand the awareness of myself and the object that I'm perceiving is from the same karmic seed. You see? It's very interesting. You have to think about it. You have to study it. You have to meditate about it. You have to talk about it. It has profound implications, actually, because if you can get to the place where you can strip that away and you can slow that movie down in deep meditation, you can start to watch the seed open. Okay? And then in that moment, you can start to understand the idea of subject-object duality. You won't fully understand it until you actually experience that. You can talk about it, you can read scriptures about it, you can have teachings about it, you can intellectualize about it, and that's awesome. And those are all different levels of understanding this idea. In an ultimate way, you have to actually sit down and slow the movie of your mind down and start to break it down into discrete frames. Okay? And when you can start to slow it right down, you can watch it happening. And then you begin to see subject-object duality or not, or the fact that you now understand that that is the misperception, and that it's all one seed that's allowing the subject-object to arise. You see? Me interacting with my object, whatever it is. So hopefully, after Abhyasa Durga Kala, after diligent daily practice for an extended period of time, following the advices of our teachers over many years, we get to a place where night and day and time and duality and black and white and subject-object and that whole thing, that these energies, we're talking about energies, pranic energies running in different cables in our body, when those get devoured by the central one, Sushumna Nadi, then they are dissolved. Time, as we know it, is dissolved. Right and wrong, as we know it, are dissolved. Black and white. Me and mine and you. I am me and you are you, and we are separate. All of that gets dissolved. And that's what they're talking about here. That is the secret of time. Specifically, he's talking about time, but you can impute that onto any dualistic situation, which is everything, as we just talked about. So that is the whole goal. That is the absolute end goal of all of the practices, of all spiritual practices, of all the different beautiful religions and faiths of the world, of all of your yoga practice, of every time that you sat down on your yoga mat to do your asana, and every time you did your pranayama, and every time you were working with your partner and trying to work with Compladis and all of that, and all of that, everything that you ever did in your spiritual career was to get you to that point where you get this sucking in and this dissolution of the side channel energy and this pulling of everything into the central channel, where the pranic frequency changes and it's running at a different frequency or a different vibrationary rate or a different intensity. There's a different quality to this channel in the center, which is different from all the other channels in your body. And if you can get that to happen, it's sort of a basic idea of wires and circuits and currents, and you get everything stuffed into the high voltage line, then you get high voltage action. High voltage action in this instance equals wisdom, ultimate wisdom in the central channel, understanding that there is no subject-object duality. Love runs in that channel, ultimate love, understanding that I created the movie of my life, like Yvonne was talking about. I am completely responsible for the subject-object duality and everything that I see in the world. I wrote the movie on the empty, neutral objects of the world. I wrote the movie, and I starred in it, and I produced it, and I did the whole thing with it. That is ultimate love. You see? Understanding that. But why? Because then you understand in that moment how you can change it. Because it's empty. And that's what prana in your central channel, that's the result of prana in your central channel, is that it forces you to understand that in a very direct way. You see? So, because of a concept that they call in Tibetan Lung Sem Jupa Chipa. Lung means prana, Sem means mind, Jupa Chipa means they ride together. They're inseparable. So when I get my prana, my subtle energy into this channel, so must go my mind. So must go that ineffable quality of mind. It must get drawn in there with them because of the fact that they're inseparably joined. Then I can experience these thoughts of love, these ideas, these profound ideas. Then I can experience wisdom, the fertile field of the mind that Yvonne was talking about. Then I can experience this the fact that I understand that it is all coming from me in a very visceral way. So you can do it like that. You can do it working with your partner. You can do it with all of these different practices that we've talked about. They either work with the prana or they work with the mind, you see. And that's the beauty of the whole system, is that you can use whichever one you like. We really like pranayama because you get to bypass the mind. You work with you get to work with the gross breath, right? You sit there doing your nadi shodhana and all of your pranayama exercises. You don't have to think about a lot. You don't have to worry about lists, and you don't have to worry about focusing on the object or like, oh my God, now I've been dreaming about lunch for half an hour or something. It's not like that. You're just sitting here doing your jackass persistence on your nadi shodhana, on your kapalabhati, on your pranayams, and you're working with your gross breath, which is one level down, working with the more subtle pranas, and that's how you're getting your wins into the central channel. Or maybe somebody doesn't like doing that, so then they like to be like a Raja yogi or something and sit there or a jnana yogi, and that's awesome. There are people that love that and they're attracted to that idea. So then maybe you're that kind of person and you want to sit there and do analysis, and you want to sit there and figure out, what is this emptiness thing, and does it really, could it really be true, what they're talking about here? And so maybe that's how you do it. And because your mind is considering these ideas in a very, hopefully a very refined or meditative state, then so goes the mind, there goes the prana. And then maybe you have the same result. So you can come at it all these different ways. And that is the end result right there. Time is devoured by the central one. They say that when you get all of your prana to fully enter into the central channel and stay there and then dissolve there, that time as we know it will stop. Okay? There is no time. Time has stopped. It's finished. Everything is locked down and it's finished. The gross breath has stopped. Everything's running, the body is running on an internal self-supporting mechanism at that point. The prana is running full bore on the central channel, and outwardly you appear completely shut down. Time has stopped for you. You have no conception of time. Why? Because there's no more duality. There is no subject-object awareness. In those moments, we're talking about a very high state of meditation. In those moments, you have absolutely no awareness of yourself or of any object that you're focusing on or of anything. It's all gone. The whole thing is stripped away. You see, that's what they call an ultimate laya, L-A-Y-A. Laya is like an ultimate dissolution. And that's how you get to stop time, you see. And that is truly how you actually end up exploding out into something like this, because of that. Because what happens with that prana when you do that is when you come out of that experience, that prana that was locked into your Sushumna Nadi, the quality of that prana is forever changed. It's forever changed. It's running at a completely different frequency than it used to, you see. And certain things will happen, and then you'll be able to love people more. You'll be able to open your heart to people more. You'll be able to be kinder to them and more patient and more understanding, and be able to listen to people when they want to cry on your shoulder, you know, rather than wondering, you know, like, when can I get the heck out of here, you see? And isn't that really the real goal of spiritual practice? Is it that we want to fly around in some light body or something? I mean, sure, that's nice. That's nice. But frankly, the real work is here, and the real work is now, and there isn't any other time. There's only now to do this work, you see. So we must try everything at our disposal to get to this point where time is devoured by the central one, so that we can try to become better people to help everyone around us. That's the only reason to do these practices. If you want to do these practices so that you can, like, read people's minds and fly in the sky and walk through walls and do weird stuff that they say can be done when you get to these places, then I don't think that you're doing it for the right reasons, and I don't think that you'll even get to that place. It's the motivation has to be for everyone. You have to do it for everyone. Why? Because they're in pain. Why? Because I'm in pain. Because I'm seeing them in pain. They're not actually in any pain. I'm labeling them as being in pain. This is my movie. I have to take responsibility for it. I have to change it. Excuse me. I have to rewrite it, and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it with my yoga. I'm going to do it with my pranayam. I'm going to do it with my asana. I'm going to work with my partner, and I'm going to do it for everyone. You see? And then I think the karma of that, if that is truly your motivation from the purest place in your heart, the karma of wanting to do that and to be able to help many people is that you will be able to, you see. And then all of this stuff will happen organically. And that's the result. That's the karmic result of wishing and wanting so fervently to be able to stop people's pain, is that you will be able to. And you will be a person that can do that, or a being that can do that. And you and your partner can go do that and save the world, right? That's the ultimate end goal.
No, I have nothing to say. Good place to end. Does anyone have any questions or comments or debates? Why don't we sit quietly for a minute and we'll do just a little meditation. So, imagine that you have no boundaries to your body, and the edge of your skin where the skin ends and the rest of your world begins is a little fuzzy, and has more of the quality of light than of skin. So it sort of illuminates rather than ends. And then imagine that you are seated with your partner, and if you don't have a partner, you can imagine one. And if you don't have a partner, it's particularly delicious because then you can imagine anything you want, everything you want, perfect. Everything that you ever dreamed of. And they're seated in front of you, and their skin also is not like skin at all. It's more like a radiance. And when you sit facing one another, your two radiances merge, and the radiance of them and the radiance of you become commingled so that there isn't a boundary, there's no delineation. It's just a radiance that's arising from the two of you. And that radiance is coming from within the two of you, and it emanates out and illuminates everything around you. And as the radiance emanates out from the two of you and starts to illuminate everything that is anything other than the two of you, the same thing starts to happen, and the radiance becomes whatever's out there. Everything takes on this quality of radiance. And there's no place where there's no radiance, and there's no thing that isn't this radiance. and you vow with your partner that your job together, your role together, is to merge your radiances and to emanate your radiances in all directions, infinitely. And then you can go back to the sensation at your Svadhisthana chakra and experience it as a heat, a radiant heat. It looks like a tiny sun, right there where you had your finger, right there where you created that little imprint of a sensation that stayed when you took your finger away. You can experience it as the heat of this chakra, Svadhisthana, the source of this radiance. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and keep that little radiant quality with you always. And let's dedicate this kind of practice, and let's dedicate this kind of way to spend a Friday evening to a world where we simply emanate radiance, in all that we do and all that we say. The kind of world that can only have one effect, and that is to just create this sort of endless loop of bliss. Like bliss on repeat. Radiate, bliss, repeat. Radiate, bliss, repeat. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for coming. Thanks.
Thank you.